Hello and welcome. Welcome to Everything is Energy. Welcome to the weekly astrology forecast. This is for the week of May 24th through May 30th, 2026. This is a week of deep transformation, nervous system alignment, and literally the rewiring of reality. And I want to kind of start off at the top of the week, which is it's such a big event. I've done a whole separate podcast on it, whole separate offering, and I'll put a link in case you haven't been able to see. Uranus is conjunct Sedna on Sunday, May 24th, and this is just a rare conjunction. It marks a profound collective turning point. And I'll just say, if Uranus represents awakening and it represents disruption and liberation and innovation, Sedna carries themes of ancestral memory and ecological consciousness and just, you know, exile and belonging, betrayal, reclamation, embracing the beauty and the power of transformation. And also, just really deep feminine intuition. And so, you know, there's a whole 50-minute podcast on that, but I would just kind of say that this conjunction really does suggest that we're entering a period where hidden truths emerge. We're entering a period where our intuition is being strengthened. We're also entering a period where old systems destabilize. And humanity's relationship to nature, to technology, and to consciousness itself is going to begin to shift rapidly. It's going to uptick. And this is not a quick transit. I mentioned in the podcast, it's operational for a couple months prior to this date and a couple months after this date. It's exact on Sunday, the 24th. And it's good that it's a longer transit because it's a generational transit. I talk about in the podcast that Uranus is her orbit is thousands of years. And so to have her be exactly conjunct, not Uranus, Sedna's orbit is thousands of years. And to have her be exactly conjunct any of our planets, let alone one of our slower moving planets, Uranus, is a big deal. So with that in the background, I want to get to what is maybe more in the foreground in the 3D world. We have Mercury quintiling Neptune at around 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 24th. And this is a really beautiful aspect for imagination and intuition. And, a quintile is a harmonizing aspect. And so Mercury with Neptune, this is going to support meditation, creativity, and kind of symbolic thinking or spiritual insight. It's going to lift our 3D communication up a notch. It's also going to soften the mental field. Around 10:30 Sunday evening, we have the sun sextiling Neptune. So Neptune's super active on Sunday. And, the sun's joining the conversation here. Sextile is also a flow of energy, and it's bringing this kind of sensitivity and compassion and intuition. And just almost like an openness to subtle perception, an openness to like peripheral vision and subtle energy and seeing beyond the thing itself. So this is a really beautiful energy on Sunday for, spiritual reflection and listening to our inner truth. On Monday, May 25th, we have a couple aspects that are really helping us find and move in a direction, but also there's some tension in this day. So let me get to the first aspect that happens right at the top of the day. It's just after midnight, and it kind of comes on the heels of what I just described with the sun and Neptune at 10:30. Mars is sextiling a north node. So this is a subtle alignment because the north node is also subtle energy. The North Node is not a thing, it is a point. It has to do with the ecliptic and the node and the path of the orbits of the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon. But Mars is, always action oriented. And this is a supportive alignment between action and direction, as in like soul's direction. So we may feel more purposeful in our sleep, or maybe it's sometime late Sunday, early Monday, clearer about what requires movement. And so this is really helping align our energy with long-term growth. If Mars and the North Node are in a flow of communication, this is helping us to take action in a way that our soul approves of. At around 5 o'clock on Monday, we have the sun squaring the North Node. And so this is where I mentioned the tension begins to emerge. Squaring is a very different energy than sextiling. And so, we may, if the North Node is our soul's purpose, the squaring action might bring a little bit of tension there, uncertain about where to focus, or maybe even aware that there's an adjustment that needs to be made, but not 100% sure about it. I would offer this. This is a time of recalibration. This is not a failure. If there's any challenges, this is a time to maybe even like push pause for a couple hours and see what else is coming. Because if you start to follow these weekly forecasts, you can see that things happen in waves, right? And there's all sorts of different energies that are emanating through the week. And let's get to what happens on Tuesday, which is a similar vibe, but maybe even a little bit more of an intensive vibe. Tuesday, May 26th is a day of transformation and a little bit of pressure. It's one of the more intense days of the week, and this is because Mars is squaring Pluto. So Mars squared the sun. Oh, Sun squared the North Node, excuse me, around 5 o'clock on Monday. And Mars squaring Pluto is happening at pretty much midnight, 12:02 a.m. on Tuesday. So this is a major transformational aspect. Mars is in Taurus, squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So this is bringing maybe some power struggles, some deep internal pressure, maybe some frustration, and this can feel intense. And kind of on the heels of what I was saying of like it's okay to let things slow down a little bit. And I think about it as, excuse me, pushing pause or releasing for a 24-hour period to let the universe show me the what, the why, the where, the next. And this is definitely operational for, Tuesday. And so we want to avoid forcing outcomes. We want to avoid being just an impulsive reactor or feeling like we need to control everything. And if you get a chance to listen to the Sedna conjunct Uranus offering that is available, I would say, you know, let go of stop trying to get in the boat. If as the myth of Uranus and Sedna goes, that the father has thrown his daughter overboard and she's trying to get back in and he cuts off her finger, she's trying to get back in, he cuts off her hand, she's trying to get back in, he cuts off her arm, she sinks to the depths of the sea, she becomes this potent, beautiful, massively abundant goddess of the deep sea that gives life to everybody in the Inuit culture. The moment she can no longer get in the boat, what boat are we clinging to? What are we trying to get back into? This Uranus and Sedna is still very much operational throughout this week and for the next couple months of time. And so, maybe the aspect is also helping us to kind of look at what kind of power are we building? What kind of world are we holding on to? And what kind of world are we wanting to create? And I often think about these things as I'm of the era where I did have a record player when I was a kid. And I have the distinct kind of young kid memory of picking the needle up off the record and skipping a song and going to the next song. I like to listen to the Muppets John Denver Christmas album or something completely. I think that's what it was. I had favorite songs, but you could pick the needle up and get to another song. And it's almost like that. It's almost like, okay, we're in this thing and it's uncomfortable. Well, that doesn't make it untrue. But what if we pick the needle up and pointed ourselves towards where we're headed, what our soul really wants to be talking about and spending time doing? And it doesn't mean to completely avoid, it means to let it have its place, to still be aware of it, to still be a part of that, but also to spend our time instead of in this sinking ship trying to get back in it, starting the new world. At around 11:53 a.m. on Tuesday, we have the sun trining Pluto. And so this is where I'm saying like it's okay to let go of the things that we're holding on to because, just later that day at noon, there's this wonderful sense of empowerment and deeper awareness and grounded transformation. Sun trining Pluto is the god of transformation, flowing harmonious energy into our 3D world, reminding us that we are not just flailing around powerlessly sinking to the depths of the sea because that is our fate. That there is no fate. Everything is always evolving. So we are still planting the seeds for tomorrow today. That is the case every day, but especially now. So, what felt overwhelming earlier in the day or in the week might become more clarifying here. And this is where, maybe insight emerges from what I was calling pressure. And maybe pressure is intensity, or maybe it's just truth or new understanding. Maybe big energy is another way to talk about it. Let's move on to May 27th. We have Mercury sesquiquadrate Pluto at 1 a.m. Uh, Mercury sesquiquadrate Pluto is going to make our mental field intense. Sesquiquadrate is a challenge of an energy. There is a tendency to overthink things, maybe also just a little bit of a difficulty letting something go or being obsessive about something. So there's kind of this theme here that we're being invited to like stop holding, stop redoing the same old things that don't serve us and begin to orient ourselves, even if it's a subtle shift, towards some new energy. At around 5:30 on Wednesday, we have Mercury semi-square to Mars. And so this is going to increase that sense of mental impatience. Again, make a note that it's probably a good day to push pause, as I like to say, before reacting to something. Our nervous system might feel a little bit agitated. Might be a good time, if we can, to do some self-care. But it's absolutely a day for slowing down what we say and what we express. And have you ever, wanted to express something that was so intense and then you knew better and you wrote the email but you didn't push send, or you wrote it out in a journal and it was truly how you felt and you needed to express it, but you also didn't take the next step and actually put it into the hands of someone else who would activate it and make it even more real in reality. So let the experience be what it is, but also be mindful that Uranus is afoot right now. We are the high technology that we seek. We are the creators. What are we thinking about? And it doesn't mean that we always need to be thinking about puffy clouds and unicorns and magical fairies. And I love fairies and unicorns and puffy clouds, by the way. But I'm just saying, like, it's okay to be human. It's okay to have challenging experiences. Let's up our ability to be mindful and aware of what we're doing. And if we need to be frustrated and release some frustration and share that with somebody, so be it. But if maybe we stop with one person instead of sharing it with 30 people, maybe we don't even share it at all. That's kind of the nature of this week. On Thursday, May 28th, this is a really great day it's going to bring some softness, it's going to bring some structure, and it's going to bring some emotional boundaries for us. So it's kind of this highly layered emotional day. And it starts off at around 3 a.m. with Venus quintiling Chiron. And so this is going to bring a very heartfelt, gentle, healing influence to us and to our planet. And, emotional awareness will really be kind of quietly restorative. And this is going to support this idea of being compassionate. Simultaneously, first and foremost, compassionate with ourselves, but also compassionate with others. There's that moment when we realize that maybe the person that we think is so annoying or so off point or so negative or so, you put the adjective in there. There's plenty of irritability and dishonesty and harm. And then there's this idea that what if their story is something I don't understand first? And even if that doesn't stick, what if they're maybe just some kind of perfect agitator and activator for me or for the world? And 6 months or 6 years from now, we'll be like, wow, thank goodness that super annoying person or thing was there because it picked up speed on things that maybe would have taken a lot longer. And I'm not giving permission for people to be negative, but I'm just saying there's this idea here that's happening on this day that like there's different perspectives, and compassion and tenderness and emotional honesty are absolutely part of the path forward. Next at around 5:30 a.m., we have the sun semi-sextile to Mars, and this is just kind of a subtle activation point. And this is going to kind of say that there's energy's going to want to move in the morning, but let's also just be mindful that we're not forcing things. So maybe we, instead of trying to completely control an outcome, maybe we take a step. Maybe that step is self-care. Maybe that step is something that's related to our external world. But maybe even in just starting to take the step, we can also then take a step back and watch what's and learn from the process. I mentioned this day is layered, so we've got a fair amount of things going on. At around 4 o'clock, we have Mercury semi-sextile to Jupiter, and that's going to help our mental field and our mind expand, supporting perspectives, supporting communication, supporting seeing the bigger picture, and maybe even realizing that sometimes even if we're absolutely sure that we know what is true for us, and did you see what that guy did? Do you have I know what that person meant because this is what they told me, and I looked in their eyes and that's what they said, and before that they said that, and after they said that. Great. Also, so what, right? What is our lived experience? What can we reclaim and reclaim the joy and reclaim the power and reclaim the love that is our birthright? At around 11 p.m., we have two more aspects. The first one is Mercury quintiling Saturn, and this is going to stabilize the mental field. This is going to support us in being really grounded in our thinking. And it's a helpful influence after what I was just saying earlier today. That might have been a little bit of and earlier this week, there's a lot going on in our mental field right now. There's a lot of healing and release and reorganization happening. And just a few minutes after that, we have Venus squaring Saturn. So Saturn is active here on Thursday evening, and this is a more serious emotional tone that comes with this transit. And it might make us feel a little bit vulnerable, or in the upside, just called to clarify our boundaries. And this isn't punishment. This is about emotional maturity. This is about honoring ourselves, honoring what we're worth, honoring what we desire and what we know that we value and what we have contributed and what we want to contribute. Let's move along to Friday, May 29th, which is, there's just one aspect that happens on Friday, but it's Sun semi-square to Jupiter. And so when the Sun is semi-square to Jupiter, this is kind of, Jupiter is going to be emotional expansion in Cancer. But squaring the Sun is going to require discernment from us. And so there might be a subtle tendency towards overextension. But really what it might mean is we also just realize we're already kind of given a lot. Maybe we're overly stretched. Maybe we're saying yes too much. And so this is really helping us to remember to take care of ourselves and to do that thing where we ask for the sign and really make sure that it's something that we want to and are excited about, not just something that we think will kind of be better than what was. It's about feeling it in the belly and feeling it in the heart and feeling it in the gut. And then on Saturday, May 30th, we have one aspect. We had a pretty full week, I will say, especially with Uranus and Sedna at the top of the week. But we have Neptune semi-sextile to the North Node. And so this is cool because this is a quiet collective recalibration that's happening on Saturday. And it's subtle energy, but I like to remind us that the outer planets always win. The subtle energy, just because we can't see it and touch it and taste it collectively, universally, like we've kind of forgotten how to experience that. We're being invited back into trusting it. And this is about a collective undercurrent. This is about a path into the future that's unfolding through surrender and intuition and spiritual awareness and subtle energetic guidance. And it's a reminder that, not all direction or completion arrives through linear thinking and arrives through logic and arrives through our current understanding of space and time. Reminds me of quantum physics, right? Which is just, two atoms can be together and then separated to opposite sides of the world and they're still connected. So there's this sense of energy being pervasive, and there's this reminder that our energy field and our heart's knowing and our intuitive knowing are, once again, Uranus is reminding us we are the change. We have all the ability to see and read information that we need. And just because subtle energy feels a little bit less than familiar to us right now collectively, because we've forgotten how to experience and read it, we're remembering it right now, which also makes it a very exciting time. And so this Saturday is really kind of a day to lean on that, remember that, and trust that. So, in sum, this week is bringing a lot of deep collective transformation. There's some nervous system awakening going on with Uranus and Sedna. There's some intuitive awakening, emotional recalibration. There might be some mental overstimulation, but that also just points us to slowing down, making sure we mean what we say, and really being conscious about the power of our communication. So I'll offer a meditation next, but what I want to say right now is just, can we stay grounded while reality is shifting around us? Can we allow our intuition without losing our ability to discern? Can we realize that our intuition is our ability to discern? And can we soften enough to hear what deeper awareness is just kind of right beneath the surface? Also, remembering that not everything that's changing requires immediate action. Just because things might be picking up speed does not mean that we need to be picking up speed and frenetically moving. It's a time for us to also really pull in and come in and go down and stay with ourselves and be with ourselves. All right, guys, have a blessed week. I will get a meditation up here shortly. Bright blessings and tons of love.